I had never experienced this level of vulnerability in my entire life. My husband passed away unexpectedly right around the holidays. For decades, he was my anchor. When he was gone, I gathered every financial resource I had. I depleted my savings. I paid the rent for as many months as the math would allow. But eventually, the math ran out. And then, the eviction notice arrived. I didn't know what to do. I simply didn't know how to handle the sudden silence of having nowhere to go. When you hear the name Ohio, what image comes to mind? Do you picture a land of quiet tranquility? Do you see rolling fields, stable Midwestern manufacturing towns, and communities anchored by traditional values? It is time to wake up and look closer. Right now, beneath that calm, pastoral veneer, the ground of the American heartland is fracturing. It is not breaking from seismic shifts or natural disasters. It is fracturing under the immense, structural weight of tens of thousands of citizens being systematically pushed to the margins of society. Welcome to Homeless US. I am Jack. Last year, the data revealed a staggering reality. Over 11,700 individuals in Ohio had no permanent door to lock behind them. But this number is not just a dry statistic printed in a municipal report. It represents thousands of shivering breaths in the January cold. It represents legacy residents, factory workers, and grieving widows being ground down by an economic structure that appears to be failing from the inside out. Today, we are dismantling the myth of the safe Midwest. From the eviction courts of Columbus to the experimental housing policies of Cleveland, we are documenting a slow-motion economic execution. Stay with us until the end. If the heartland of America is bleeding from these hidden wounds, then the entire nation must pay attention before it is too late. Part 1. The Genesis of Instability, a slow-motion execution. Do not delude yourself into thinking that Ohio's current housing crisis is merely a statistical anomaly or a temporary hiccup in a post-pandemic report. The truth demands a much deeper analysis. What we are witnessing across the state is a slow-motion economic transformation that has fundamentally altered the definition of stability for the working class. The early 2020s were often heralded as a period of economic recovery. In reality, they acted as a structural meat grinder for middle and low-income households. You might believe that a full-time job acts as an impenetrable shield against homelessness, but consider the reality for the more than 112,000 Ohioans who saw their primary source of income vanish entirely in 2023 due to corporate restructuring and localized layoffs. When steady paychecks are severed, families are forced into a desperate mathematics of survival. They cling to credit lines like life rafts in a turbulent ocean. According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland, consumer credit debt in the region has surged by over 13%, representing the highest, most suffocating financial load in over a decade. Let us examine the lethal math of the modern rental market. How is a family, earning a median income of roughly $58,000 a year, supposed to maintain their footing when the cost of a standard apartment in Columbus skyrockets from $900 to nearly $1,400 in the blink of an eye? When inflation and aggressive property management models devour every last cent of disposable income, the profile of the unhoused fundamentally changes. These are no longer individuals who fit outdated, stereotypical narratives of long-term poverty. Nearly 28% of Ohio's unhoused population are experiencing this trauma for the very first time. They were skilled laborers. They were reliable employees in the service sector. They were your neighbors. The working class in Ohio isn't just struggling to get by. It is actively disintegrating under the pressure of a housing market that treats shelter strictly as a high-yield asset class. But the physical reality of cold and hunger only paints half the picture. Deep within the social fabric of this state lies a profound, often untreated psychological strain. Current health data suggests that 1 in 5 adults is white-knuckling their way through severe anxiety and depressive episodes. When professional therapeutic intervention costs upward of $200 an hour, and the grocery budget is already running dry, people are forced to simply hang on until their emotional resilience snaps. And once you lose the physical sanctuary of a roof, your psychological well-being is the very next thing to be stripped away by the harsh environment of the street. Crushing consumer debt, highly aggressive rent pricing, stagnant working-class wages, and an overburdened behavioral health system. These elements do not exist in isolation. They combine to create a powerful vortex that swallows optimism. We aren't just patching minor holes in a cracking foundation. We are observing the structural failure of a safety net that has lost its capacity to support its citizens. The urgent question is no longer when this crisis will stabilize. The terrifying question is, who will be the next to be pushed over the edge? Part 2. Columbus, a city of lethal statistics. To understand the geographical spread of this crisis, we must break Ohio down by its epicenters, beginning with the state capital. In Columbus, municipal numbers are not just data points for sociologists to debate. They are blaring sirens screaming a warning that many policymakers are choosing to ignore. The most recent point-in-time count stripped away the facade of urban prosperity, revealing a grim, undeniable reality on the pavement. Over 2,500 people are effectively navigating homelessness in Franklin County on any given night. This is not just a marginal increase of 7%. It is a record-breaking scar on the conscience of a city that prides itself on rapid growth and technological expansion. Among these thousands, hundreds of individuals are enduring the elements in places entirely unfit for human habitation, under highway viaducts, in dense, wooded ravines hidden behind shopping centers, and in the rusted shells of abandoned vehicles. When urban developers boast that Ohio remains a bastion of affordability, compared to the coastal megacities, we must stop and ask, affordable for whom, exactly? It certainly is not affordable for the thousands of legacy residents watching median rents surge past $1,200, while the citywide vacancy rate chokes at a suffocating low of under 4%, when the supply of housing is artificially strangled by zoning laws and aggressive investment firms dictate the terms of the market. Affordability becomes a cynical buzzword, with severe housing instability exploding by over 20% in recent years. The city's skyline growth looks less like inclusive prosperity and more like a gentrification engine that displaces its foundational workforce. Yes, there are minor, hard-fought victories. Dedicated outreach teams are working tirelessly to transition individuals off the asphalt and into temporary beds. But we must be honest about the scale of the solution versus the scale of the problem. While handing someone a key to a temporary shelter is infinitely better than handing them a thin thermal blanket, it remains a systemic band-aid applied to a deeply severed economic artery. Columbus stands at a critical tipping point. Will the administrative infrastructure continue to merely nod its head, forming task forces and counting the displaced every January? Or will the city finally admit that managing the optics of poverty is not a substitute for building a sustainable, affordable housing infrastructure? Part 3. Cleveland housing over handcuffs. As we travel north to the shores of Lake Erie, the narrative takes a distinctly different turn. It is not a purely rosy picture, but in Cleveland, we find a gritty, determined flicker of institutional hope. While many municipalities across the rest of the United States are doubling down on aggressive encampment sweeps, issuing municipal citations, and relying on law enforcement to manage the unhoused population, Cleveland has chosen to swim fiercely against the national tide. Their philosophy can be distilled into 3 words: housing over handcuffs. Through highly coordinated, localized initiatives like a home for every neighbor, the city has practically demonstrated a truth that challenges the cynical narratives of urban management. By the spring of 2025, over 150 individuals who once slept on the cold, unforgiving asphalt were successfully transitioned into actual, permanent residential units. They were not discarded or shuffled to a different industrial district. They were handed keys, signing leases in their own names. Cleveland's playbook is fundamentally different because it does not lead with punishment or displacement. The city actively engages private landlords, providing guarantees to cover upfront costs and potential damages. More importantly, they wrap the newly housed individual in a robust support system offering access to social workers, behavioral health specialists, and job placement programs long enough for the person to catch their breath and stabilize. The City Council is currently debating further million-dollar funding allocations, and whispers of true, long-term sustainability are echoing in the municipal chambers. But the success in Cleveland forces us to ask a truly uncomfortable question on a national scale. If an industrial, Rust Belt City, managing its own profound economic challenges, can successfully pull over 150 high-acuity individuals off the streets and into permanent stability in under 2 years. What exactly is stopping every other major city from adopting the exact same model? Is it a genuine lack of financial resources? Or is it a lack of political courage? Or more brutally, is it deeply rooted in the way society views those sleeping in tents as a visual nuisance, to be scrubbed away from the commercial districts, rather than as vulnerable human beings inherently deserving of rescue? Cleveland is betting its resources on humanity in a national climate that increasingly prefers bans, barriers, and badges. This is not just a municipal budget dispute. It is a moral battlefield. Whose safety and comfort are we choosing to protect first? The aesthetic preferences of the privileged observer, or the biological survival of the person fighting to endure the freezing night? Part 4. Cincinnati, when home is a borrowed couch. If we turn our gaze south to Cincinnati and Hamilton County, the nature of the crisis reveals its most heartbreaking demographic. Here, the struggle is not just about solitary individuals navigating the urban core. It is about the systematic, silent disintegration of the family unit. If you listen closely to the cold statistics, you can hear the muffled, exhausted sighs of parents trying to protect their children from the reality of their situation. The latest localized data delivers a profound gut punch to our collective conscience. Housing instability in this region has climbed steadily over the last 24 months. But the most jarring, unacceptable figure is the recording of over 100 families found sleeping in places not meant for human habitation in a single year. And we must remember a critical sociological truth. That statistic only accounts for the visible misery. For every family counted in a vehicle or a tent, there are thousands of parents and children living entirely in the shadows. They are huddled on the borrowed couches of reluctant relatives. They are rotating through the rusted interiors of aging sedans parked in big box retail lots. Or they are burning through their last remaining dollars in dilapidated, weekly rate motels until the cash completely runs dry. Our current social safety net often operates with a cruel, bureaucratic irony. These families will frequently struggle independently for a full calendar year. They will burn through every personal favor, exhaust every line of credit, and strain every relationship with extended family before they finally succumb to the stigma and officially ask the system for emergency shelter. By the time the municipal system officially sees them, they are already hollowed out versions of their former selves, exhausted by the trauma of constant relocation. And when they finally arrive at the intake center, what do they often receive? They receive a cold, institutional door closed in their face because the facilities are operating at maximum capacity. Have you ever witnessed a shelter door close on a family because there are simply no beds left? That is not an abstract policy challenge debated in a sterile boardroom. That is a real, breathing child asking their parent why they cannot stay inside, and a parent desperately trying to formulate an answer without emotionally disintegrating in front of them. We live in a society that stands by while children experience the deep physiological stress of sleeping in the dark due to municipal budget constraints. If Cincinnati, or any city, cannot protect its most vulnerable youths from the trauma of the street, then the cultural values we preach regarding the sanctity of the family are fundamentally compromised. Will we allow another generation to grow up doing their homework in the backseat of a car, by the light of a street lamp? Or will we finally admit that failing these families is a betrayal of the very future of this state? Part 5. The systemic toxin, the social fallout. Do you honestly believe that this tragedy remains neatly confined to frozen sidewalks or the hidden shadows of highway overpasses? If so, you must look closer. The homelessness crisis in Ohio is a systemic toxin that is slowly seeping into every vital artery of our broader society, from emergency rooms stretched to their absolute breaking point to neighborhoods where the foundational fabric of communal trust is actively fraying. Walk into an Ohio emergency room at 2 o'clock in the morning. You will not just see traditional trauma patients or acute medical emergencies. You will see human beings seeking refuge from the cold. You will see individuals who do not require a surgical scalpel. They require the fundamental stability of a locked door and a warm bed. Our hospitals are being choked by souls battling severe exposure, untreated chronic trauma, and the physical decay that comes from living outdoors. They are the ghosts of a public health system that was never structurally built to handle this level of sustained human collateral damage. While the Ohio eviction machine operates with the cold, unfeeling efficiency of an industrial assembly line, the construction and zoning approvals for deeply affordable housing move at a crippled, agonizing snail's pace. When a person's grace period runs out before they can find an affordable roof, where do they land? They land in the silent, overwhelmed exhaustion of medical professionals working double shifts, and in the hollow sighs of dedicated social workers who are desperately trying to plug a bursting dam with incredibly cheap, temporary bandages. This is not just an issue of a housing shortage. This is a moral autopsy of a state apparatus that is failing its most basic civic exam. We are bearing witness to the slow-motion collapse of the very concept of community. Every single time we allow a neighbor to slip into the abyss of the street because they missed a single rent payment, we sever another crucial thread of the shared humanity that holds civil society together. We must stop asking when the system will break. The empirical evidence shows that it is already breaking. The real question is, will we continue to pretend that these widening societal fractures do not exist? Or will we finally admit that a society that abandons its working class to the unforgiving elements has lost its moral compass? Part 6. The Heartland Paradox: Wealth and Apathy. Do not let Ohio's overall gross domestic product or the flashing green economic indicators of its corporate giants deceive you. We are living inside a nauseating structural paradox. Here's a state that ranks among the top in the nation for manufacturing power and industrial output, yet it cannot seem to manufacture enough basic, secure roofs for its own foundational workforce. While politicians gleefully cut ribbons on billion-dollar technology data centers and massive semiconductor manufacturing plants hailing the arrival of the future economy, they conveniently ignore a dark reality. The very laborers who pour the concrete, frame the walls, and clean the facilities of those empires are frequently forced to sleep in their vehicles because their hourly wages are mathematically incompatible with regional rent prices. This localized indifference isn't just a failure of municipal management, it is a calculated, legislative choice. Every time a proposed low-income housing project is killed in a city council meeting because of affluent residents citing property value concerns or neighborhood character, we are driving another nail into the coffin of social equity. The price of this localized apathy is not just measured in tax dollars or lost civic revenue. It is measured in broken lives and generational trauma. A society that worships endless economic growth statistics while aggressively ignoring the soot-stained faces huddled under its highway bridges is a society building its prosperity on a foundation of quicksand. If we continue to prioritize the profit margins of corporate real estate portfolios over the physical survival of working families and vulnerable children, then Ohio's generated wealth is nothing more than a glossy coat of paint applied to a structurally rotting house. Part 7. The Struggle in the Shadows: Managing Misery. When we evaluate the response on the ground, we must ask, is Ohio actually fixing the root problem, or is it simply managing the optics of misery? When I look at the landscape of intervention right now, I see a network of incredibly dedicated nonprofits and advocates clawing at the last remaining shards of hope. But if we are to be brutally honest, these isolated efforts often feel like trying to bail out a sinking ocean liner with a teaspoon, while informal encampments in Columbus continue to spread, driven by sheer necessity. We often comfort our civic conscience with the existence of housing stability programs. Yet, many of these crucial programs are currently operating on financial life support due to severe, unpredictable funding gaps. Advocacy groups across the state are currently engaged in a desperate legislative street fight to prevent tens of thousands of formerly unhoused households from being shoved right back into the abyss by proposed federal budget axes. In Cleveland, as we noted, initiatives pulled dozens of people off the pavement. Is that meaningful? Absolutely. For those individuals, it is the difference between life and death. But compared to the vast, churning ocean of suffering outside, it remains a drop of water in a sprawling desert. The undeniable truth is this: The Ohio housing market is operating at a fever pitch, and the economically vulnerable are the first ones being consumed by the flames of inflation. When rents skyrocket by double digits while median wages remain effectively flatlined, every heroic non-profit effort is merely a temporary bandage applied to an active hemorrhage. Even more sickening is the bureaucratic red tape. When local community groups attempt to open youth drop-in centers or emergency warming shelters, they are frequently strangled by rigid zoning rules and neighborhood opposition. Are we truly trying to help these vulnerable youth? Or are we utilizing municipal bureaucracy to legally exile them into the dark? Local churches, mutual aid groups, and exhausted volunteers continue to hand out warm blankets, hot meals, and moments of genuine human connection. These are the final, frayed lifelines connecting the unhoused to the rest of humanity. But when the overarching economic structure is this fragile, even the strongest, most dedicated lifelines eventually snap under the weight. We preach compassion as a core Midwestern value, yet we force that compassion to operate within a macroeconomic system that is fundamentally, intentionally designed to leave people behind. The question is no longer whether individuals on the ground are trying their best. The question is whether our society is willing to tear down and rebuild this failing structure, or if we are content to watch extreme poverty haunt the state, generation after generation, like an unbreakable curse. Part 8. The pre-written sentence looking to 2030. Over the next 5 years, Ohio's future regarding housing instability is not a profound mystery. If current trends hold, it is a pre-written sentence. We are standing on the precipice of a slow-moving disaster. Consider the thousands of households currently relying on temporary housing vouchers or pandemic-era support systems. If proposed federal and state cuts proceed, these families could be abruptly shoved back onto the pavement. Combine that impending cliff with the staggering, documented deficit of over 260,000 affordable rental units across the state. What do you see on the horizon? These are not just predictive statistics for an economic journal. It is a brutal, grinding stranglehold closing in on people who are already hanging onto society by their fingernails. What does the year 2030 look like at this exact trajectory? It looks like elderly citizens, people who worked their entire lives, being kicked off borrowed couches and forced onto the streets because their fixed Social Security checks cannot cover a studio apartment. It looks like essential workers in Columbus, Cincinnati, and Dayton bleeding more than half of their monthly paychecks just to keep a roof over their heads, entirely unable to save for a medical emergency or a child's future. It looks like temporary tents and rusted cars transitioning into permanently accepted bedrooms, turning the promise of Ohio into a jagged, visible scar right in the heart of the Midwest. It is time to permanently retire the word shock from our vocabulary. When we discuss rising homelessness, the gut-wrenching truth is that we, collectively, are not shocked. We have simply become too accustomed to the status quo to admit that our own civic policies, our voting patterns, our zoning laws, and our localized indifference built this precise machine of misery. Yes, there are crucial flickers of hope, like Cleveland's commitment to housing first pilot programs, but without bold, aggressive, and highly coordinated action from state and federal lawmakers, Ohio is not heading toward a functional end to this crisis. It is heading toward a dystopian future where we simply learn to step over the bodies and live with the suffering. We are rapidly becoming experts at ignoring the desperate cries of our neighbors until their voices simply fade into the ambient background noise of the city. The choice is ours. Do we summon the political will to build homes, or do we continue to dig graves for the American dream right here in the soil of Ohio? The outrow, the final reckoning. Ohio does not often capture the sensational national headlines, like the sprawling encampments of Los Angeles or the wealth divide of San Francisco. But if you look closely into the shadows of the heartland, the fracture is just as deep, and the human toll is just as devastating. In the last year alone, over 11,000 people here went without a stable, secure place to rest their heads. On one single, freezing night in Franklin County, thousands of souls were left to navigate the brutal elements of the pavement. When you place those localized numbers next to the staggering, statewide deficit of affordable rentals, a chilling clarity emerges. This is not a crisis of bad individual choices or moral failing. This is an economic system quietly and efficiently pricing human beings out of their own existence. I leave you with a brutal question for those who hold power, and for those of us who elect them. Why is it that we can seamlessly pour billions of dollars into shiny new athletic stadiums, massive highway expansions, and corporate tax subsidies, yet the act of keeping a secure roof over a human being's head is treated as an impossible, unaffordable burden? Yes, there are stubborn, beautiful sparks of hope. We see cities pulling people off the streets. We see church basements converting into winter survival bunkers. We see neighbors delivering hot coffee and dignity at the break of dawn. But that grassroots kindness is terrifyingly fragile. It is like trying to warm a raging blizzard with a single candle. This Ohio narrative is not just a localized tragedy confined to the Midwest. It is a visceral, critical chapter in the much larger, unfolding story of homelessness across America. When history looks back at this specific moment in our society, what will the record show? Will it document us as a generation of bystanders who simply looked away and adjusted to the misery? Or will it say that this was the moment we finally drew a hard line in the dirt, the moment we decided, definitively, that every single human being deserves vastly more than a concrete sidewalk and a thin nylon blanket? We want to hear from you. How does the Heartland Paradox reflect a reality in your own state or city? Do you believe the system is broken, or is it functioning exactly as intended? Please share your insights, your frustrations, and your stories in the comments below. We read every single one, and your voice is the engine of this channel. If you believe that housing is a fundamental human right, and that no one should be priced out of survival, please support our mission. Hit the like button to help the algorithm push this documentary to the people who need to see it. Subscribe to Homeless US, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into the hidden truths of our nation. Share this video with your community, your family, and your local representatives, because the more people who understand the mechanics of this crisis, the harder it becomes for the world to look away. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your empathy. We will see you in the next story. Together, we can make the invisible visible. This is Jack, signing off. Stay resilient and stay compassionate.